Secondly, Bernie Sanders' campaign has said that he would debate if there was a debate in April. Do you think there should be another debate in April, and would you participate?
My focus is just dealing with this crisis right now. I haven't thought about any more debates. I think we've had enough debates. I think we should get on with this.
So what you just heard there was Joe Biden earlier today on ABC basically saying that he would not debate Bernie Sanders anymore during this Democratic primary, that there's been enough debates, and that at this stage, the debates are a distraction from the crisis at hand. And I have to say 100% that Joe Biden is wrong here. The debates are not a distraction. They are vital pieces of information and context the voters need to make their decisions. And despite the fact that, yes, Joe Biden does have a large lead in delegates right now, it is not an insurmountable lead. And there are thousands and thousands of delegates left to be allocated in this primary, meaning that Bernie Sanders does need to ramp it up, but he's got plenty of room mathematically to come back and win the nomination. And these are not normal times. This is not a static primary, and American politics right now are not in a static, normal position. Things with this crisis are moving very quickly, ramping up extremely quickly. And the last debate, which was 1 versus 1, Bernie versus Biden, happened light years ago in terms of politics, given how fast everything has moved. And America is in a very different, much more precarious position than they were during that previous debate. And so it's worth it again for the American people to hear from both Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden 1 versus 1 on the debate stage. Make the debate specifically about this crisis. You might make the argument that the voters have enough information about Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden regarding their broader philosophies. You might disagree with that statement, you might agree with it, but somebody could reasonably make that point of view because both men are well known and there have been, 11 or so debates. But when it comes to how this crisis is evolving and unfurling, and what Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden would do to immediately rectify it and what they would do over the medium and long terms, we do not have enough information. And I think when it comes to the question of how each man, their political philosophies, and their historical records either make them strong candidates or weak candidates to address this crisis, I think we need a much bigger discussion on that particular question as well. So, for instance, I think Joe Biden may want to hide from Bernie Sanders, the public, a debate stage because his insistence that healthcare models linked to having employment status have been exposed as very, very bad in a context where America may be facing 30% unemployment. All of those people whose healthcare, whose dental care, whatever, had been linked pretty much exclusively to their status as an employee for a certain company, that's all gone now. And the contrary is that Bernie Sanders, who's legendarily and consistently defended a single-payer universal model, his vision has been exposed as exactly what America needs at this particular moment. That the inequities of healthcare are one of the reasons that America, among developed countries, will handle this crisis far worse than almost any other. And Biden doesn't want people to see that black and white on a debate stage yet again. And because the crisis is in a different position than it was a couple weeks ago during the last debate, Bernie Sanders can make that point much, 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 much more forcefully than he did before. There are so many reasons why this debate is needed. Furthermore, the whole process was designed initially with around 12 debates in mind, and I believe we've only had 11 debates. So having this 12th and potentially final debate keeps the party within the agreed upon schedule, and then if there are more debates needed, a reevaluation can happen at that stage. But when the process started, an agreement of 12 debates seemed reasonable, and so Joe Biden should sort of stick to the agreement that he and Bernie and all the rest of the field, when this process started, sort of signed up to, and then participate in this 12th debate at the very least. And there's one other factor that I think is quite important, and I've noted this before. This process has had quite a few debates. There hasn't been a lack of debates. But because the field remained large until nearly the very end, only one of the debates has been 1 versus 1. So Bernie and Biden have had only a little bit of practice when it comes to the style of debate you're going to see in a general election, where they're all going to be 1 versus 1 debates against Donald Trump. And so whether you're a Biden supporter or a Bernie supporter, even if you're a Biden supporter that feels he's locked it up, you probably can admit that Biden could use more practice when it comes to 1 versus 1 debates with all the chips on the table. And if Bernie Sanders helps him get that practice, gets at least one more 1 versus 1 debate in before the general election later on in the summer and fall, then that's for the better, because an effective and trained candidate versus Donald Trump has a better chance of victory versus Donald Trump. Bernie Sanders could offer that to Biden, or Biden could offer that to Bernie Sanders, whichever of the two becomes the nominee, and both would be stronger for it. And of course, as we know, the process is about finding a person who is strong and effective at taking on the Republican nominee and winning the presidency. So from my perspective, guys, this underlines the broad trend that we've seen from Joe Biden over the last few weeks, pretty much since Super Tuesday. Hide away as much as possible, because every time you're in front of the camera, you come off terribly. And the longer and more unscripted that appearance is, the more terribly you come off. So hide yourself. There was a recent article in The Atlantic, which basically suggested that all Joe Biden has to do at this stage to win is stay alive. Now, I disagree. I think that strategy is extremely dangerous. Maybe he can skate by in the nomination, but he will lose the general with that strategy. But the fact that people are putting that strategy forward, that Biden just literally needs to keep a pulse, demonstrates the fact that they have no confidence in Joe Biden as anything more than a husk to collect delegates and electoral college votes and popular votes in November. And he's not actually effective or inspiring as a person or a candidate or as a, political figure who's bringing a vision for America. That tells you everything you need to know. That Bernie Sanders is working hard every day, willing to debate, willing to discuss, willing to have these sorts of meetings with people about building a better America and about solving immediate and long-term crises. And Joe Biden and the people in the media advising Joe Biden are literally saying, Joe, hide away, stay alive, you'll be president. That tells you everything you need to know, guys. Joe Biden is hiding away from Bernie Sanders because he fears Bernie Sanders' debating skills. He knows that Bernie Sanders is the man for this moment, and he knows that he does not have the wherewithal, mental or physical, to make it through this process if he's not hiding away 50-60% of the time.